Before we get started, just a note, this is a video made in response to Matt Pat's newest video as of the time of recording this. The current title is Game Theory. Link is not who you think he is. Parentheticals, The Legend of Zelda. That title could change, who knows? But I just wanted to go and say that I would recommend watching that video before you watch this video because I'm going to be referencing it, talking about the points that he makes and responding to it. And I also want to kind of just go ahead and say is like this is I have a bunch of respect for Matt Pat. Really, he made talking about Zelda lore a lot more popular. So I have nothing but respect for Matt Pat. I'm not trying to make a video about why Matt Pat's a bad YouTuber. I love Matt Pat. I love seeing him in the spoiler alerts for Five Nights at Freddy's. I love seeing him as a part of the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. As someone who enjoys the YouTube space, Matt Pat's been a huge part of video game discussion for a while. And now that he's done a video on the Zelda lore and especially Wind Waker lore, I just want to participate in that discussion, talk about things that I think he might be wrong about, and just have a discussion there. This is not a why I hate Matt Pat video. That's not what I'm trying to do. I love Matt Pat. This is I want to respond and continue this discussion about a game series that I love, and I love that he's talking about it. That said, it also frustrates me that that I think there are some common misconceptions about Zelda lore that I want to address. Not just things that I've heard Matt Pat say, but things I've been hearing in the community for a while that, and maybe maybe I have my own weird old man takes on Zelda lore. I've been in the game for a while. But there are things that I see people discuss and I'm like, oh, I just feel like y'all don't quite understand it. And sometimes that frustrates me and I want to set the record straight. So sometimes I do feel passionate about this game series that I love, and that's why I want to make this video. And one of those things too is like talking about the timeline split, right? Talking about the downfall timeline and like what is it? Don't get me started on that because that's actually not even relevant for this video. But there's several concepts that Matt Pat talks about in his newest video, and that's mainly he's talking about what does it mean for Link to have the spirit of the hero? Why is Ganondorf being revived? These are kind of the cornerstones of the theory. And how's that connected to Demise's curse? And those are big questions that I feel like are not answered satisfactorily to my satisfaction. Um, so I mean, I gave him I was keeping score and I was like, well, let's think about points for Matt Pat, right? He picks up that Link and Zelda are mostly different iterations from game to game. That's good. That's a good start. He picks up that Wind Waker, there's dialogue in the game, of course, that Wind Waker Link, quote unquote, has no connection to the Ancient One, right? And I guess I want to talk more about that later, but that's a good starting point, right? That's a good starting point for the theory. But I mean, before we get into anything, we have to unpack what is Demise's curse? What is it really talking about? And what is Matt Pat getting wrong about it? From that, what is the spirit of the hero and what is Demise actually saying? And I think to help explain that, I want to pull up a clip from a recent podcast episode that I've been recording for Wind Waker, for podcast Unflooded. This video is not out yet, so y'all are about to see a special clip, pulled for relevance from an upcoming episode featuring special guest Larulian Historian, who helped explain a little bit about Demise's curse. So let's roll the clip.
So the curse of the demon tribe, some of it that's lost in localization is the fact that demise is actually referring to samsara, which is a Hindu Buddhist conception of birth, death, and rebirth or reincarnation. It's a very specific process. The way he describes it in Japanese, the curse that's existing is the fact that the demons are continuously being reborn over and over and over again, and that it's something that affects them. Then he binds the spirit of the hero and the blood of the goddess to it in the sense that no matter where they are or when they are, an incarnation of his hatred and his malice, his grudge against the gods, is going to follow them and basically mess with their futures forever. It's never going to end. It's a cycle without end. So people see that, and in localization they interpret it as he specifically cursed Link and Zelda or people who are like them. Where if you're reading into the nuance of it and reading that information in Japanese and looking into what samsara is, it colors it very differently. It's less of a curse and more of a promise, and he's saying that it's going to happen because this is something that's already happening. It's
Mm.
something he's already undergoing. It's something all of the monsters and demons are undergoing.
Interesting. So it seems like it's more of a statement on what is already a part of kind of the natural world. It's less like, oh,
Precisely.
I'm going to be reincarnated. It's not a statement on, on his reincarnation specifically, but evil exists. It will continue to exist in this land.
Exactly.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
Hmm.
I hope that starts to clear something up. I guess the thing is, my understanding, of course, thanks to that interview and thanks to my own interpretation, is that, really the Zelda series is not about reincarnation. And that curse of demise sounds like it's talking about reincarnation at first. Um, but I mean, we know from other games that, in talking about especially the relationship between different Links and different Zeldas, and even different Ganondorfs, it's really more of a statement. It's not a history of reincarnation. It's a history of families, of bloodlines, and Link is not always related, right? And that's something that we're going to get into. Link is not always related, but there are families that pass down through history. There is the royal family. Zeldas are a part of that royal family. Um, we're told that very literally. And of course, Ganondorf, as a part of the Gerudo tribe, is a part of, their own royal family. The Gerudo's own royal family is all a part of that lineage as well. And so Zelda is very much not about reincarnation with that in mind. Um, I don't know. Like, that's my own interpretation. And looking at Demise's curse, especially with what Laurelian historians said, just that idea that it's not even about, oh, my spirit is going to be reborn as Ganondorf. It's more of that, like, as long as, nothing changes in the world, as long as the nature of, good and evil remains the same, which it will, there will be evil and it will persist. And, just like there is in the real world, right? It's more of a biblical promise more than anything, right? Um, just a statement on human nature and the nature of evil. And I guess with that in mind, if we want to think about that, then this whole theory of, like, is Demise's curse being broken because Ganondorf's being killed? No, Demise's curse, A, has nothing to do with Ganondorf, and B, if it's just about naturally persisting evil, let's look at the adult timeline. In Phantom Hourglass and in Spirit Tracks, wouldn't you know it, evil still persists. There are still monsters. There are still demon kings. I think Maladus is even described directly as a demon king himself. So it's just that idea that Demise's curse is broken at all is not canonical within the timeline of events that were given after Wind Waker. Like Ganondorf being killed for once and for all is a big moment. And it is that iteration of Ganondorf being killed, and that is a big thing compared to times when he's just sealed away. And so I guess I want to talk about that a little bit too, is, all right, Demise's curse is clearly not being broken in Wind Waker. So let's talk about the significance of Ganondorf being killed and how Ganondorf shows up throughout the series. Because like I said, the Zelda is about these families, and we know Tetra is a descendant of the royal family as well. And Link is sometimes a descendant of other Links, sometimes, or of knights. But I want to talk about Ganondorf specifically because Demise's curse is supposedly wrapped up around why Ganondorf keeps returning. And just the truth is, Ganondorf often keeps returning because he's the same Ganondorf, right? Most of the times that he returns, it's not a reincarnation. It's either a resurrection or him breaking the seal that he was imprisoned in. Literally the same character, just coming out of the woodwork again. That's all. So let's get into that specifically, just to be specific about that, right? We know Ganondorf first appears in 3D in Ocarina of Time. We know that Ganondorf appears again in the Wind Waker, is confirmed to be the same exact character. we know that Ganondorf from Ocarina of Time also appears in another timeline in Twilight Princess and is confirmed to be the same iteration of Ganondorf. Both, were sealed away in different forms, in different ways, right? Ganondorf was sealed after a botched execution in Twilight Princess's timeline, and Ganondorf was sealed away at the end of Ocarina of Time, into the Sacred Realm, where he broke free in both games to return and wreak havoc. But that's the same character returning. And then beyond that, there's only a couple other canonical Ganondorf appearances. Beyond those games, I think the only other canonical appearances of Ganondorf are in Tears of the Kingdom, A Link to the Past, and Four Swords Adventures. I think that's it. And Tears of the Kingdom, my personal theory is that Tears of the Kingdom is basically a rewrite of, its flashbacks are a rewrite of Ocarina of Time. That's my theory. That may not hold up to scrutiny. That's just, there are things about it that don't line up about it, but that's kind of my theory. So with that in mind, the Ganondorf that we see in Tears of the Kingdom would also be another look at Ocarina of Time's Ganondorf. I don't know really if that holds up to scrutiny. That's just kind of where I'm sitting at it right now. But even so, that means that there's, like a half dozen games, and most of those have the exact same iteration of Ganondorf. A Link to the Past and Four Swords Adventures, it's definitely not the same version of Ganondorf. And I don't think Ganondorf himself ever appears in A Link to the Past. It's just referenced, especially in the manual, but I don't think he ever appears in game either. But that's a different conversation. In-game evidence versus, manuals still, create canon here. And anyway, I guess the point is, there's not this long history of Ganondorf appearing and reappearing in the series. It's mainly the same character, and especially the nature of Ganon himself. Because I guess I want to talk about my own theories about what Ganon is. We've talked about who Ganondorf is. It's usually the same character. But the same thing with Ganon. It's not this history of reincarnation. It's this history of resurrection. In the Oracle games, Ganon, the Beast Ganon, Pig Ganon, reappears because he was resurrected, because there was a ritual, initiated by Twin Rova. And I think that's a big part of Ganon's reappearances. It's the same entity literally coming back. And my understanding is that Ganon and Ganondorf are very different things. Beast Ganon is kind of an immortal spirit, who can be summoned, and Ganondorf is a person, who can be, who might be able to be resurrected or sealed away and can break the seal, but they act differently. And then sometimes they can fuse together, right? Ganon can share a host body with Ganondorf, but I see them as being very separate entities. So I don't know. This may be kind of controversial within Zelda lore. I'm just kind of rambling here, and this isn't super relevant to the discussion. So I guess the point is, Wind Waker's Link is not even the only Link to kill Ganondorf. TP's Link also kills Ganondorf. So if you want to say the only way that Ganondorf could be killed is by someone without the bloodline of the hero, Wind Waker Link and Twilight Princess Link kill Ganondorf, and kill him, for good. And Twilight Princess's Link, we know that he shares the bloodline of Ocarina of Time's Link. I don't want to pick apart the rest of the video, but there's really no relevance to bring up the proximity of Outset Island to Windfall Island as a reason to say whether Wind Waker Link's bloodline would be connected to the Hyrulean Knights or not. It's just not relevant, and I don't think it makes sense, and I don't want to linger on that. But just the idea of island proximity, of Outset Island is way outside of Hyrule. It just doesn't make sense as to say people can move, right? People can sail, and we know that the tradition of the Hero of Time was carried over to Outset Island anyway, so it's not so far outside of Hyrule. And of course, as per the map that I'm working on, Outset Island is very much close to Lake Hylia. It's very much a part of, central Hyrule, even if it's, further south on the Wind Waker sea chart. Yeah, so I guess, I've been rambling a lot. I kind of just want to end the video talking a little bit about the spirit of the hero. And I just, with all of this in mind that we've talked about, and I also want to thank Pixel Fusion for their notes as well. I was in a chat with Pixel Fusion, and they shared some ideas about MatPat's video and just kind of responding to some of these points. And a lot of that got me thinking about what I wanted to say in this video. I've also recorded a podcast episode with Pixel Fusion that will be out soon, so subscribe to the channel to watch that. So I wanted to thank them for their contributions, and they really got me thinking about a lot of this stuff. And yeah, just talking about the spirit of the hero with everything we've talked about, Demise's curse, and just that idea that it's really not about reincarnation. I think just usually, my understanding is throughout the Zelda series, when we talk about what it means to be a hero, that's totally in line with the literal definition of what it means to be a hero. There's not some like, oh yes, you are now like the spirit of, is now possessing you. You are now officially a Zelda hero. It's usually very much about like, are you performing heroic deeds? Wind Waker's Link is recognized by Valoo to be a hero after his first dungeon that he completes. He's recognized as the hero of winds and is dubbed um, with that moniker. And sometimes the idea of what it means to be a hero in Zelda is aided by additional phrases. In Twilight Princess, I think it's that big hero chosen by the gods, which is not a statement on reincarnation, even though I think Twilight Princess also has dialogue about Link sharing the blood of Ocarina of Time's hero, as confirmed by the Hero Shade. But that's kind of a separate conversation. The idea that he could be related is a different conversation to reincarnation. Reincarnation is not in the picture. It's just, is he a hero? Can he pick up the mantle again? And that's always the big question. It's always that choice of like, are you going to choose to put on the tunic, get the sword and shield, and save the day? Literally, are you willing to become a hero? That's really the important thing about the spirit of the hero. And especially in the context of Demise's curse, just being about the statement of the natural order of the world, it's not about like, oh yes, as long as there are people like you, that idea that there is a princess and a hero, it's not some deeply connected thing there. It's like, this is the natural order of the world. Evil will return. And if you want to stop it, it will be up to someone to try and stop it. That's the idea of the hero being reborn within Demise's curse. That's my understanding of it anyway. And that's just kind of my response to there. And just like my understanding is just the idea that the Wind Waker's hero of winds isn't a real hero, is just, it's not a canonical idea at all. We know he's not related to the hero of Ocarina of Time. And I think that's all the Wind Waker's trying to say. Because there's these times when the Deku Tree or Jaboon or Valoo may be, older creatures, right? And especially the Deku Tree, if we assume that the Deku Tree from the Wind Waker is the sprout from Ocarina of Time, then that's a character that would have recognized the hero of time. And so in talking to these characters, it's even more important to say, this is not the hero of time reborn. This is not the hero of time returning to save the world. This is a new character. And that's the importance of the hero of winds being someone else. But anyway, these are just kind of my thoughts, and I'm just kind of rambling, and who knows, maybe some of this is more controversial than I think, but I just kind of wanted to do a video talking about these concepts. I don't know if I explained them well, but but I just wanted to kind of talk about them and respond to Matt Pat's video, just kind of have a free form discussion about this series that I care about. Y'all, thank you all so much for watching. Y'all know how to support me as a creator. Links in the description if you want to. I'll see you in the next video.